Hello, I'm Denise Pratt. Welcome to Airtable Talk Unplugged. It's a show produced by the Communications section of the Ministry of Education, Technical and Vocational Training. Here we feature key education stakeholders as we discuss issues that are critical to the academic sector. Now, a lot has happened to advance the quality of education, particularly since our country obtained independence in 1973. Today, I am speaking with our former Prime Minister, Dr. Hubert Minnis. Now, during his term as Prime Minister, the Education Ministry put in place several major programs. This year, as we celebrate our country's 50th independence, we have invited Dr. Minnis to share with us his thoughts on the major initiatives that were launched during his administration. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here so early this morning.
Yes, it is early. It is my pleasure to have you on the show. And we'll get right into it. Now, during your administration, like we said earlier, a number of major programs were put in place, and quite profitable programs to advance the cause of education in this country. I want to ask you, first of all, sir, your administration established what is called a Prime Minister Delivery Unit. And I know that had a number of goals in mind. Can you share those with us, please?
Yeah, we established that unit. It's a performance management unit. Of course, as Prime Minister, I had no ministry, and we determined what were the top ministries, what were our priorities, and those individuals would meet with the delivery unit monthly, and then they would come and report to the Prime Minister quarterly as to updates, where you are, did you achieve this goal, what were the problems, what were the challenges, and therefore we'd work through the challenge to ensure that they met the goals. And it worked very well. Education, we had several goals in terms of education. We wanted to ensure that we increased preschool education. We thought that was very, very important. As you know, many studies have been done. And one of the challenges that we have in the Bahamas, and we keep missing it, we were informed that about 60% of students entering grade 1 are not prepared for grade 1. They are not qualified and they're not properly prepared. As a result of that, they move to grade 2, they move to grade 5, they move to grade 9, 10, still not properly prepared, lagging behind. And that's why we see the results that we've seen today. And we also know that once you have proper preschool education, that is the best way to improve one's economic and social outcome in terms of dealing with poverty. That is the best way to deal with it. So that was one of our goals. The other goal, it was essential that we improve the passing rate of high school students. It was very low, and we were successful. Again, all of this can be monitored via the unit. Then we wanted to ensure that there was free education, tertiary education, so that all Bahamians would have an opportunity for education, be it university as well as BTVI.
Now, these goals are very strategic and they're very extensive. So I want to get a bit more details about each one of those. I want to talk about the preschool initiative. Now, I know that it was quite interesting. I remember when you launched the government Crown Land grant offer, and then there was the voucher offer, and so forth. So and the partnership with the private preschools, can you share a bit about those things?
The challenges we had with the preschool, our goal was keeping with the UN mandate 2030 that all students should have preschool education. We were very low in spite of all the monies that were spent by IDB, et cetera. We were very low, us and the other Caribbean nations. And it was essential that we achieve our goal. We knew that there were challenges. There were private schools, and most of the students that received preschool education were affluent or those who could afford it. Those from underprivileged areas obviously did not receive proper preschool education. So the challenge we had to find a way. We knew there were not sufficient, government did not have sufficient preschool, and therefore we introduced the voucher system the voucher system, if the private sector were given the opportunity to accept students from the public sector, and the government would pay them $2,000 per year. And that was very successful. Then many preschools were not necessarily up to standard, because you have to ensure that the teachers are teaching the curriculum that you would want, because if there's any misstep in terms of teaching these individuals, then that misstep would be carried forward. So qualification was essential. So we allotted $1 million, and we gave at least $25,000 to about 36 private schools to help their upgrading, to help them meet the necessary standards, and that was successful. So between the two, we were very successful, and when we first came in office, there were only about 1,400 students that were receiving preschool education. Our goal was to have at least 1,000 per year, which meant that though the UN was looking at 2030, we would have completed that goal and objective by the year 25, 26. So we were on target. When we left in 2021, there were about 6,000 students that were being educated via the preschool system. So we moved from 1,400 to 6,000 in that short term. In spite of Dorian, in spite of the pandemic, we was able to advance. There was another challenge that we faced. The Family Islands. We always said we are one Bahamas, we are not Nassau-centric. And we did not want the Family Islands to be marginalized or left out. And therefore, we came up with a program for the Family Island. We said to them, once you are educated as a professional in terms of preschool teaching, and you wanted to establish your own facility, we, the government, would give you the land. There's no charge. We would give you the land. We would also allow you to bring in everything that's necessary to build your preschool duty-free. There'd be no charge. We would also provide you with the grant so that you can build your school through the special Small Business Development Center. We would provide you with the money. In addition to that, every student that you enrolled in your school, we would give you the $2,000 per year, because we wanted the Family Islands to be inclusive also. That was a very, very successful program, the preschool, and the results, and that's where the delivery unit came, because the delivery unit would have been able to monitor and see what challenges we have. And delivery unit, the data is there, which showed that we had moved from 1,400 when we came, 1,400 when we came, to 6,000 when we left in 2021. So we were on target to meet the UN's goals and objectives way before what they had planned for.
Well, that's excellent. It's also excellent that you were able to establish the Prime Minister's Delivery Unit, because it's something that has continued after your administration. So clearly that was a positive move in the right direction. And preschool education as well.
We came in with a mandate. We wanted to identify what were the main causes of poverty, and let's just tackle poverty. One of the main problems or causes of poverty is education. We're not properly educated, and therefore we can't become leaders, etc. All the data showed that preschoolers, they were the ones that became the leaders. They were the ones that became affluent. They the ones became CEOs. They the ones became president, etc. And therefore, we had to introduce a system to give every Bahamian that opportunity, not just the elites or not just the affluent, but give every Bahamian that opportunity. And we felt that once we did that, the end result, you'll see an improvement in our high school results. We'd see an improvement in our college. We'll see an increase or uptake in college education. We'll see an uptake in BTVI, technical education. And that was the mandate, because all the data was there. And we felt that by the year 24, 25, 26, we would have achieved that. And obviously, moving from preschool, college, high school, etc., what we would see in the Bahamas, and one, you don't expect the microwave results. One would see results 10 years from the day where now all the leaders in your country are Bahamians. Yes. But at the same time, it gave those individuals from the Baintown, the Camp Road, yes, to Augusta Street, it gave them an opportunity to become leaders in our institution, in exactly, our country. And that was the goal and objective.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's time for our first break. This is a really interesting conversation. And we now take our first break. You're watching Airtable Talk Unplugged as we speak with our former Prime Minister, Dr. Minnis. Stay with us. We will be right back.
Don't be no fool, stay in school. Let your mind become a tool. What's going on, y'all? It's your favorite entertainer coming to encourage all the parents out there. Make sure your children in school. Why they ain't in school? You know if they're in school or not. Listen, education is key and it's very important to the future. We have future leaders in your household. You have the next prime minister, future doctors, lawyers, practitioners. Give me another big word. You all know the people who make lots of money right in your household, but in order for them to get there, to the money, to the goal, to the success, to the CEO position, they must be focused in school now. I know the pandemic got them a little lazy, but we back face to face and we need to jump right back into it. And to the kids who are watching this, I want to encourage y'all to stay focused in school, stay encouraged. Sometimes things might get a little hard, might get a little rough, but you have people there to help you. You have your teachers, you have counselors, you have administrators to help you with any challenges you might have in school or out of school. They are there to help. And they wouldn't be able to help you if they don't know that you need help. You are a future leader, you are a world changer, you are advocate, you are the solution to somebody's problem. But you gotta stay focused now. You gotta get through grade 1 to grade 20. How far is 12? Grade, I mixed the numbers, grade 12. Stay focused. Go to college, go to institution to learn a trade, but just keep going, stay encouraged, go to school, get your education, get your degree, and people like me are waiting for you, world changer. So come, I'm waiting for you. I can stay right here and I can wait for you till you reach.
Welcome back to Airtable Talk Unplugged. We are speaking with our former Prime Minister, Dr. Minnis, about his administration's impact on education. Now, you had mentioned earlier in a previous segment that your government put in place a grant for our students to attend the University of the Bahamas and BTVI free of charge. Can you tell us a bit about this?
Yeah, again, education is the key moving forward. It costs the average Bahamian about $6,000 to $7,000 per annum to educate their children. High school. University, college. Yeah. That is cost prohibitive to many individuals. And we thought the best way to help all was to ensure that tertiary education was free. But tertiary education, not only at UB, but also at BTVI and also at BAMSI. What we found is the enrollment list subsequently ballooned overnight because that parent now saved themselves $6,000 to $7,000 and that student was able to attend university or BTVI free of charge, which was a challenge to them in the past. We also realized that the students coming from the family islands, those parents were very concerned about the safety of their children, the environmental conditions they were living in, etc., because you learned a lot as you traveled through the family islands. And what you found is that in the family islands, parents would work 3-4 jobs if necessary to send their children to the University of Bahamas. So that meant that they really wanted an education, they wanted their children to be in a safe environment. So we came up with a formula and ensured that every student coming from the family island, in addition to attending the university free of charge, was also given $500 per month to assist them with their living accommodation. Because the last thing we would have wanted was the parent in the family island to be concerned about where their children were living. Now, our delivery unit would have looked at that also.
Right.
And after about a year or 2 years of the program, we would have made a determination as to whether the $500 was adequate, because we really wanted the Family Island parent not to undergo any additional stress. So our delivery unit, we would have had the data, and we would have made the determination if the $500 was adequate. If we discovered that the $500 still placed some degree of stress and challenge on the parent, we would have increased it to accommodate that. So if the data suggested that we needed to increase that to $700, then it would have been increased to $700.
Right now, we have very few males, in comparison with the females, who actually go on to higher education when we look at the statistics of the students who are leaving school. So we wanted to know, how can we encourage more males to actually pursue higher education, stay in school, and see it through?
A lot depends on their environment, their social environment, their upbringing, and their encouragement. When I went to medical school, there were about 80% males and 20% female. Now it's the reverse. It's 80% female and about 20% male. You find that men usually tend to lag behind. They're not concerned initially with academics. They become very concerned later on, and you find that's when they tend to blossom. Women, on the other hand, we find that they are academically inclined all through. So the man, we have to catch up. But if we had that base, right, that parental influence, in my case, the sisters' influence, your brothers and sisters' influence, that would help you, especially if the elder sister or brother themselves was academically inclined and successful. What you find is they would pull you along. And we found a lot of that, especially within the inner city where I was brought up.
So it's a generational blessing.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, Dr. Minnis, it's time for our next break. That went by quickly, this segment. Well, stay with us. We'll be right back with our former Prime Minister, Dr. Minnis, talking about initiatives that occurred in the education sector during his administration.
School is like a bus ride. Just like any other ride, there are turns that make you slow down. Sometimes you run into potholes or roadblocks, and your driver has to take another route. Don't let that stop you from reaching your goals. Just keep going. If your bus breaks down on your ride, just keep going. You're going to get to your destination. Even if it's hard, go to school. Or even if you feel like it, or if you think your goals are too far away, don't stop. Just keep going.
Hi, I'm Dyson Knight. Yo! Schools are open. It's been a year, and still some of our students have not returned to class. Teachers, we are appealing to you to use that innovation, that extraordinary effort that you used during the pandemic to make sure that our children continue their education. Take to Twitter, Facebook, Discord, whatever platform you believe necessary in order to find our students. Be the beacon of light that attracts these children to you so that you can instill the confidence in them that they need in life to succeed. I'm counting on you. The Bahamas needs you. Let's find every child.
Welcome back to Airtable Talk Unplugged. We are speaking with our former Prime Minister, Dr. Minnis, about his administration's impact on education. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Now, I want to start with Hurricane Dorian. Back in 2019, you called the impact of that hurricane a generational tragedy. How was it a generational tragedy in our education sector?
Well, first of all, Dorian was something that the world had never seen. We were seeing it for the first time in this part of the hemisphere. It caused severe devastation, especially on Grand Bahama and Abaco. you would have had to see it to appreciate it. And when I first saw it, it was like an atomic bomb just went off and just totally imploded everything. I mean, stone buildings were just brought to powder. Our schools were likewise affected, which meant that our schools in these two islands, they were destroyed, and therefore that would have automatically placed our students back. Can you construct schools overnight? Can you develop schools overnight? No, we can't. But when we came into office, one of the things we looked at, Bahamas is an archipelagic nation, islands scattered all over. And we had determined, not only from educational, but health also, we had determined that it was humanly impossible today to provide proper structures with manpower needs on all of those different islands. But they needed the same thing. Every island within the Bahamas, every student deserved the same type of education as is given here in Nassau. The student in Ragged Island or Auckland should not be marginalized. And therefore, we had come up with technology. So we wanted to ensure that we can have online learning throughout the entire Bahamas, so that when an individual is teaching math in New Providence, that individual in Auckland's, Crooked Island, they can log on and attend the school at the same time. And therefore, you won't have an island, a nation separated by water. You have a nation being brought together by technology, and
yes,
everyone having the same opportunity. One of the problems we found, especially in the Family Islands, because of the amount of teachers and the type of subjects that were taught, they only did about 5 BGCSE. And that was the basic requirement to enter University of Bahamas. At the same time, they never, though they were very intelligent, they never qualified to the All Merit Scholarships Award, yes, because you needed 8. And because of the manpower in terms of the numbers of teachers, they never qualified, and that was not fair. So we wanted to introduce a system that would equalize everything, and technology would do that. So we started the whole concept of digitalizing the entire school educational system so that everybody would have access to education. We were successful, because when we started, the school systems were not digitized. By the time we left, in spite of the hurricane, in spite of the pandemic, by the time we left, 90% of our educational system was digitized.
Excellent.
We also, fortunately for us, we established a virtual school. Fortunately for us, so we were thinking of bringing everything together. The virtual school opened one day before Hurricane Dorian hit us, one day. And therefore, when we were hit with Hurricane Dorian, because we had a virtual school already implemented and functional, we were able to bring the students from Abaco and Grand Bahama to New Providence. Fortunately, the residents in New Providence were very, very helpful. A lot of them accepted the students from those areas, those islands, into their homes to assist them. The private sector assisted, so that was not an issue. But we were able to automatically bring those students online immediately, and therefore we did not lose too much in terms of our education. But that's planning. If we did not have the virtual school, you can imagine the disaster we would have had here in the Bahamas.
Now, I remember there was a major outreach for devices.
That's right.
After the pandemic, students needed devices, and we saw an outreach to the corporate community, to the private sector. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, we knew that the government did not have the resources to provide computers or pads for all the students, for every student within the Bahamas, because government has to mobilize its resources not only to provide them with pads, but also for reconstruction and rebuilding the schools, the educational system, as well as other systems, health as well as people's homes, etc. And we reached out to the private sector, NGOs, different organizations, and they came on board. They came on board. They recognized how important education was to our society. They recognized that we were placed in a situation where the Bahamas can fall 2-3 years behind in education, and it's a complete generation loss. So we would have seen an educational disaster 5-10 years from the day that we would have never even dreamt of, which meant if looking forward, that educational gap would have had to be replaced by a foreign entity while Bahamians would have been pushed to the bottom. So the private sector came on board, and we also asked the politicians like myself who were receiving grants for their constituency in terms of constituency allowances. We said, listen, this is not about politics. Commit some of your constituency allowance to assist in buying the students the computers and the pads that were necessary. And we were very successful. We were able to raise 50,000 pads to ensure that every student, every child within the Commonwealth of the Bahamas had access. Now, because they had access, we already had the digitized system. We had digitized the entire educational system, so we were prepared. Then the virtual school was running, so we were prepared. But we did not anticipate that we were going to get hit with a hurricane nor a pandemic. But fortunately, because we had already digitized our systems, we were ready for it. Unfortunately, we fell behind in the health sector. But you must remember that the health sector, when I was Minister of Health in 2008, we had started the telemedicine, the digitized, the health system using the same principle. And the argument was that if at any point in time we have a disaster, individuals would not have to travel from the Family Islands to New Providence or wherever. They could stay in the Family Island and see the doctor here in New Providence, or if necessary, they could see a doctor in Japan, they could see a doctor in Africa, wherever. And this is where we were moving. Unfortunately, the program was stopped. For whatever reason, we won't get into that.
Well, I'll ask you this. I know they're telling me that we're running out of time. There's so much more we could talk about in this session, but please share with us, what are your closing thoughts? And my mind goes back to ask you, if you could go back in time, you were hit with a pandemic and an unprecedented hurricane. Both of those events were unprecedented. If you could go back in time, is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, communication is key. We were hit, when I came in, we were hit immediately with Hurricane Irma. Hurricane Irma came through the south and was devastating the south. We did what people said was impossible. We said we could not leave our people exposed to the hurricane coming up. And therefore we did an air evacuation, never done before. People said it was impossible. We said there's nothing impossible, we're going to do it. So we were able to evacuate citizens from the southern islands, brought them to safety in New Providence or wherever, and no lives were lost. Then we were hit with pandemic, Dorian, then the pandemic. I think if we had to do things differently, it would be more communication. We may have taken a lot of things for granted that people understood what you were doing. Because we understood, we assumed that you did. And I don't think we had broken it down to basic level so that individuals understood that in both Irma, Dorian, and the pandemic, our greatest concern was saving lives and maintaining the quality of your life. Because we're a small nation, and you can imagine if we were to lose 30-40% of our nation, you can imagine how far that would set us back. So we always felt that you can always replace buildings. You can always replace material things, but you cannot replace life. I think we did not explain that as well as we could have. And therefore, if I if I were to go back in time, communication was key, and we fell down on communication.
Well, I like your point, saving lives and maintaining a good quality of life. And I think that is key overall when it's all said and done. And unfortunately, we're going to have to end now. We're out of time, I'm told, but it has been a pleasure to speak with you, Dr. Minnis. It's certainly been a pleasure. You've been watching Airtable Talk Unplugged. Now, if you'd like to receive further information about what's happening here at the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training, you can check out our website or the social media platforms. Well, that's all for now. I am Denise Pratt. Thank you for listening in, and happy Independence, Bahamas.